Hi you guys! So I got asked to do some BDSM safety tips, so I thought that the best way to approach this would be to make kind of an overview video. So this is BDSM safety for the complete noob. Um, if you're more advanced and you've been in the scene for a while, you probably know all of these things. If I forget anything, feel free to comment down below, or if you're new and I somehow don't cover a question that you have, feel free to comment and ask down below. I will answer anything to the best of my abilities, and if I don't know, I have my resources. So let's begin. We will begin with the most important thing. The most important thing in any relationship is consent. Consent is what separates kink from abuse, and sex from rape. It's pretty plain and simple. Talk with your partner. Be as thorough as you possibly can, and make sure that you have their consent for any activities that you plan to proceed with. The next important thing that you should cover before you play would be a safe word or safe signal. I like to use red. It's understood by most people in the community that red means stop. The safe word, whatever it might be, it doesn't have to be red, means cease and desist. The scene should then end should end abruptly as safely as possible. I got tongue-tied there for a minute. A safe signal would be if your speaking apparatus is otherwise engaged or unusable by you for any reason, as mine seems to be today, and you need the scene to stop. Some kind of hand gesture or noise that you can make or body movement that can be easily seen or heard by the person in control, by the dominant, the top, whatever word you choose, to know that this means stop. I was restrained once in a scene in an upright position, and I was given keys on a carabiner. And if the scene were to become too intense for me, I was instructed to drop the keys, and the loud clatter that the keys made on the concrete floor, unlike this pen on my leg, would let the top know that it had become too intense and I needed to stop. The next thing, I guess, moving right along, is impact play. Floggers, whips, paddles, canes, barehanded spanking. All of the fun hitty type play. So the first thing is always to start slow. Start at a low, moderate pace, even if you know that your bottom can take a lot of intense sensation or pain. Start slow and build to that, so that you know exactly where you're at with the situation. Nextly, this should be obvious, but stay away from sensitive areas. And when I say sensitive areas, I am, but I am not including, like the chest and that sort of thing. Yes, breast tissue is sensitive and that sort of thing, but what I really mean is the neck, the face. If you're hitting someone in the back, stay away from the kidneys. If you're hitting someone in the ass, stay away from the top where their tailbone is. In general, avoid the spinal region of the middle of the back. There's too many nerves too close to the surface that can be easily damaged. If you're hitting someone in the chest, like breast whipping or whatever, avoid the xiphoid process. That's the little bit at the bottom of the sternum. I understand that it can be broken off quite easily. I mean, I feel like most of these things are pretty self-explanatory. Next things next, I suppose, is wax play. As with everything, start slow and and see where it goes for you. I guess the important thing here is that not all wax is created equally. In my personal opinion, the best wax for this is the white votive religious candles that you can pick up at Kroger or any other supermarket. They typically have the Virgin Mary on them or something. They're white and they're unscented, and I think they're paraffin, if I'm not mistaken, and it has a relatively low melting temperature, which is what you want. You want something that has a low melting temperature so that the wax is hot and dripping, but it's at a lower temperature when it falls. And also the distance that you hold it above something. If the wax falls from here, it's going to be a lot hotter when it hits the surface than if the wax falls from way up here, and so on and so forth. If you're interested in that, I will list a chart down below with the specific times and distances of some waxes that I'm familiar with. Next is bondage play, which is a pretty big umbrella term. A big safety thing with bondage play is that you have a way out of it. We'll start with rope bondage, since it seems to be the most common. You can't always get a knot undone, or you can't always, if the bottom is freaking out or has put themselves in a position in which they might be injured and they need to be removed from bondage quickly, you don't always have time to untie. Sometimes you have to sacrifice the rope. Paramedics shears. They have a little lip on them, so they're not really designed to cut skin. It'll slide right under. They're super strong. You can actually cut a penny with these. Though if you do cut a penny with these, you have to throw them away and buy another pair. They're actually designed to be one-time use only. I don't know if that's because they lose their sharpness after one use, or if it's because if a paramedic is cutting bloody clothes off of someone, they don't want to risk that cross-contamination. But just knowing that in their intended use, that their design is one-time use only, I think that's a thing that you should probably stick to. The next is leather bondage. That being said, this can probably cut through leather. And last things last, metal bondage. I don't know of anything short of the jaws of life that are gonna cut through a big, thick steel cuff. However, and this is a thing that I've experienced, I recently had to have this little padlock cut off of a posture collar that I was wearing. And be sure that if you're engaged in any locked bondage or metal bondage, that 1, you know how to easily contact a locksmith in the event that you don't have the technology to free the person. Be able to contact a locksmith if it's not an emergency, and an EMT if it is. Thirdly, if you're pretty swift with tools, you might be able to something as small as this lock, either pick it or just cut it apart. But make sure if that's your attempt that it's in a place that is going to be safe for your bottom should you slip, which is almost nowhere. Just don't do it. Next thing, I guess going back to any kind of bondage really, but specifically with rope bondage, is numbness. Make sure that the bottom is aware of their body and aware of any numbness that might occur. In a common chest harness or box tie that's used in a lot of both Western and non-Western rope bondage, where the arms are in a U-shaped position behind the back like this. numbness can occur, and it's pretty normal that numbness occur in the hands and lower arms, but it's important that it occurs all over at once. If these two fingers or this part of the hand goes numb separately from the whole hand, then it means that there's pressure on the radial or ulnar nerves somewhere in the upper arm or the lower arm, and that can cause serious nerve damage and means that that person's hands won't work. It's really essential that you as a top and you as a bottom be aware of your body or your partner's body and mindful of what's going on. And the last but not least most common sense thing about bondage play is never leave someone who is bound alone. They might be in a totally comfortable position, but, just standing up with their arms behind their back. But what if they fall? They don't have their arms to catch themselves and, they're going to break their face. You can get seriously injured. Or they could be in a position where their breathing is stifled in an unintended way and they can't fix it and you're not there to fix it. People can die. Just never leave someone who is bound alone. Speaking of breathing stifled, we'll get to breathplay. Breathplay is a touchy subject, even in the community. People tend to give wide eyes and sideways glances to edge players. The thing about breathplay is that it's not safe. There's not really any way you can make it safe. It's something that you do with experience. It comes from learning from someone else. And knowing your partner and your partner knowing themselves and all of that. But I'm obviously not going to tell you don't do it. Because, let's be real, sometimes it's really hot. Okay, most of the time, it's really hot. The major safety thing with breathplay is that you think that you might be able to just let go of someone's, throat and they can breathe or, uncover their face. But a lot of the deaths that occur result from heart failure later on. 15, 20 minutes, an hour later. So what's really important there is to learn the signs of these sort of things, and learn CPR. It's never a bad thing to be CPR certified. Never. It looks great on job applications. You never know when you might need it in the bedroom or out and about. But yes. Breathplay. Be safe. Be sane. Be consensual. Be responsible. Be sane. Bloodplay. First things first, make sure that your utensils are sterile, autoclaved, and brand new. It should be common sense, never, ever, never, never, never reuse needles or blades. Never. That's how terrible blood-borne pathogens get spread. Terrible. Another thing that should be common sense, gloves. Just because you wash your hands, all kinds of nasty bacteria live on the hands, and you don't want that in the wounds of someone that you care about. It's important. Nextly, alcohol or green soap. Some other sanitation device that can kill those bloodborne pathogens. Make sure you spray them down before any wounds are created. to cleanse the area of bacteria already on the skin. Make sure that you spray them down afterwards to make sure that no new bacteria have accumulated and will get into the wounds. And then follow up with, wound care afterwards. If there's, a bandage necessary of some sort, to quell the bleeding. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. Specifically with needles and scalpels, never use them if your autoclave date is expired. Never use them if the packaging has been opened or if the seal is broken. Also, needles come with the little plastic sheath that you can snap them back into. Never use them if you walked away. Say you're, calmly engaging in some needle play with your partner, and for whatever strange reason, you need to turn away for a moment. So you put the needle back in the little plastic case, and you turn away and, take off your gloves, step out, answer your phone for a moment, leaving your unrestrained partner there, and come back, and there's your needle laying there in the little plastic container. No. Also, needles decrease in sharpness with each stab. So, if you're going to stab the same person, because remember I said never reuse needles, multiple times, get new needles. I think that covers most of that. Anal play. This is an area where I don't really have a lot of expertise. Especially with a partner who's inexperienced, go slow. Use lots of lube. Start with your finger or other small object. Dilator. If it's for a plug, they make graduated sets of plugs that start at a very small size and graduate up to a larger size, meant for anal training. But I think that they could be a good introduction to any kind of anal play. Just lots of lube and care. And I guess that's all that I have for you today. No, it isn't. I lied. I almost forgot the next most important part. We talked about consent and safe words before you play, and we talked about a number of basic safety tips for while you play, but we didn't talk about what to do after you play. Aftercare is just as important to the scene as the scene itself or as consent. People need a lot of different things. So talk with your partner about what they might need after a very intense scene. After bondage or impact play, really, Breathplay, any of the things that I mentioned, endorphins are rushing, and afterwards a person can be quite cold. So, a handy-dandy fuzzy blanket in your toy bag come pretty heavily recommended. Or a nice fuzzy robe. A bottle of water is always a good thing to have on hand. Sweating, crying, drooling, all of those things can be quite dehydrating. Nextly, it's not a bad thing to have like granola bars or other kinds of snacks on hand. Just to make sure that your partner's blood sugar is where it needs to be. Some people require a good cuddle after a scene, and some people need their space. So, as is paramount, talk with your partner about things. I guess that's all. If you have any questions, once again, ask down below, and I'll address them to the best of my abilities.